It is time to welcome in Brooks Webb, Vanderbilt Baseball General Manager and Chief of Staff. First of all, thanks for joining us. We just talked about it. It was crazy because the first time that we saw you guys in person in a very long time was at the Vandy Boys send-off to Omaha. What has this last season been like in your new role, Brooks?
Well, first off, Kayla, thanks for having me on. It's always good to see you, and it's been a whirlwind. I feel like the 2021 season in and of itself just flew by. There were so many restrictions and different things in place as the season started, and as we went along, you're able to get a few fans back, then you're able to get all the fans back. It was just it was a progression unlike any other. But at the end of the day, as you and I kind of were just talking about, you just start to feel this sense of normalcy. And when you do get an opportunity to play in Omaha and your kids get that experience with 100% capacity, I think that was the greatest gift they could have received, was to get to see the pinnacle of college baseball. And that's what you play for. And they got to experience that. And that was a lot of fun for our kids. And obviously something that as we do get back to normal and turn the page to the new semester and get back into the fall, we hope we can continue to welcome people back into our training sessions and to the Black and Gold World Series and things like that, and just start the next chapter.
Yeah, and two guys that are going to start the new chapter, the next chapter in their careers, Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker, the dynamic duo there at Vanderbilt. Brooks, what is it going to be like on Sunday in this Major League Baseball draft, having not one but two guys that are likely going in the top 10, if not before that?
Well, more than anything, Kayla, you're just excited for those kids and their families, because it's a combination of a lot of years of hard work, a ton of sacrifice and investment. And for those guys, Lights and Rock in particular, they had a choice to start their professional baseball career several years ago out of high school. And I think they were able to identify and relate with the value of the Vanderbilt experience. And there's no doubt they took advantage of everything they possibly could here in improving themselves, but they also poured everything they had into their teammates during their time here. And they just cared about winning. Those were highly recruited guys, top prospects. So you talk about what it's been like. That's not easy for them. And it's not easy for their teammates, because when you have a group of, 35, 40 guys, and nationally you're only hearing about two, there can be a lot of thoughts that probably take place in a locker room. And that never occurred with our group, because those two never allowed it to be a story. They were just directed towards team. And I think that you could see that in their actions on the field. You could see that in their, interactions in the dugout and how their teammates related to them. So it's been exciting. But at the same time, a lot of it was just noise, because they just wanted to be, college kids who were pitching and trying to help their team win. And that's what I'll probably always admire most about these two guys, is they just kept their head down. They led when they needed to lead. They competed when they needed to compete, and they were teammates when they needed to be teammates. Mm-hmm. And they could separate all that out from worrying about something they have no control over, and that's the draft that will take place tomorrow.
Let's get into some of the technical stuff. The stuff we like to talk about on the mound. Let's start with Kumar Rocker. He's obviously, you mentioned he has been here since 2019. He won a College World Series championship. We were there in Omaha to witness that and his spectacular performances. What's the strength of Rocker going into this MLB draft? What scouts are looking for, and how have you seen and where have you seen the most growth out of him?
He's always been a pretty unflappable kid. There's just not much that phases him. I think what I have seen on the field the most is he's just adapted himself to how other teams have tried to attack him from an offensive standpoint. Because, as a hitter, if you get off to a really good start, pitching coaches are going to start to attack you differently. And it's no different when you're a pitcher and what's the offensive plan going to be like. So after that, really dominant book that he wrote down the stretch of 2019, he wasn't going to get that same approach from teams in 20, and certainly not in 2021. So his stuff was already so good, as we saw with the no-hitter and the run in Omaha. But he knew he needed to refine and add to his arsenal, and he's continued to do that. So when you see a pitch like the cutter that he employed this year, that was one of his, more go-to pitches, that is already what I would consider to be a plus offering at the next level, that just shows, I think, a willingness to say, hey, I know I'm very talented, but I can get better. And that's the mindset that guy's really taken every day since he's been here, which is ultimately why I think the sky's the limit for him as he does get to the next level. But I also think, and Coach Corbin said it best after the final game in Omaha this year, when he was asked about his impact on the program. He didn't mention a word about baseball. He didn't mention a word about pitching. He just talked about his work ethic, the type of teammate he was, the impact that he left on the program because of just the individual that he was inside the locker room. And that's really all you need to know about the type of guy you're getting for whatever team is fortunate enough to draft him tomorrow night.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And I just watched a spectacular video on MLB.com. And I just remember him saying, Tim Corbin, when he was recruiting him, he thought like, there's no way this guy's coming to our program. And Kumar got up and said, I'm going to be the best teammate I can be for you. And that was just the start of what has been a beautiful relationship between the two. So that has been spectacular to watch. And shifting to Jack Leiter, this is also a kid who, I mean, I remember him in his first outing, and I got to interview him after getting that win. And he was such a professional. I was so shocked and so impressed. But at the same time, I knew his dad was Al Leiter. And I was like, okay, you kind of grow up with knowing how to be a professional. But when you're looking at him as an MLB team right now with a chance to get him, what sticks out to you?
Well, you just mentioned it, Kayla. He's as polished as they come when you talk about professionalism and how he handles himself in front of the media, how he interacts with his teammates. Many of the same fibers as Rocker, in a sense of he's not really going to let traffic on the bases or one bad inning kind of derail an outing, which is such a great trait to have as a pitcher because you see things go south with young arms so quickly when it's not going their way. For him, he was dealt a tough situation more so than Rock, where as a freshman, like he was just starting to hit his stride, but really hadn't had a chance to figure out who he was yet. And the season was taken away, just like it was for so many in various sports. But the growth, I think, that took place for him while he was home during the pandemic, that was a big piece for him. And he came back and just said, hey, I'm going to, if this is my last year, I'm going to make it the very best year I possibly can. And he came out of the gates, as we all know, so dominant this year. I mean, what was it, 20.2 no-hit innings in the SEC? That just doesn't happen. It might not ever happen ever again. And it was so early in the season, I think a lot of people have probably moved on from that thought. I certainly haven't, because I saw it with my own eyes, and I was just in amazement that he's mowing down South Carolina and LSU and Missouri. And it's just, guys just don't do that. And because of that, the expectations got super unrealistic, where if teams were scoring 2 or 3 runs off of him, people were deeming that as some kind of failure of an outing. Super unfair to the kid, but at the same time, that comes with high expectations. So for him to be able to battle through those starts where he wasn't at his very, very best and bounce back and close the season as that same dominant guy you got in the first, 5, 6, 7 weeks of the year, I think that's what you're certainly going to get, because we all have to go through these reset phases where we figure out, okay, I need to throw this pitch in this count, or I need to throw this pitch less. And, the talent is there. You see the explosive fastball and just the things that will play at the next level, but you don't doubt any of the off the field talent either. And I think that's why both with Rocker and Leiter, they're the total package.
Well, yeah, we're just getting so close now to the draft here on Sunday. You've probably talked with these two. What's the feeling like with these guys? Are they nervous at all? Are they excited? It's always hard to kind of see what these young guys are thinking going into a moment that's going to change their lives.
I think naturally, I wouldn't call it being nervous, but I think naturally there's just this sense of, excitement, but with that can bring, feelings of, where am I going to go? I'm going to have to, relocate to an area of the country that I've maybe never lived in. It could be on the East Coast. It could be on the West Coast. They'll be doing it with a lot more money in their pocket than they had yesterday. But I also think there's some uncertainty that comes with that. But they're ready for this moment. They're certainly ready for it. They've earned it. I think that's the biggest thing. And I know that they come from really good households that have put them in a position to just continue to get better as people. And then by coming, to our program, I think improving as players on and off the field. but I know they're excited. I think they'll be happy with wherever they end up. But I think at the end of the day, that they're certainly ready to take that next step.
Yeah, and my final kind of question to you, because Vanderbilt has been this program that has brought these players to it and developed them. I mean, that's the biggest thing that happens at Vanderbilt. And there's so many guys now in the league. How much does it do for a program too, then, just to keep on every year adding to that? And now with 2 more guys that are likely going to go at the top of the draft.
Well, I think the difference in recruiting and developing, there are a lot of people who recruit very well, but maybe they don't develop to the level that, we've been fortunate to do with inside of our program. And that certainly starts with Corbs and just, going on 20 years now of understanding that there has to be this holistic development that takes place with their kids. When they get here, they're kids, and you want them to leave, as men. And I think it starts with him, but our coaching staff, they're the best in the country at developing that talent on both sides of the baseball. You've seen that with 2 hitters being taken in the first couple of picks in the first round in 2020 and 2019 with Martin and Blade. You're going to see it again this year with Rocker and Leiter, and the job that Mike Baxter does with our hitters, that David Macias does with our hitters, but that Scott Brown does with our arms. He's got so many first-round guys that have come out of here since he's been at Vanderbilt since 2013. But I also think it also starts with the ability to identify the right type of kid that fits the Vanderbilt program, one that's going to handle their business professionally on and off the field. And that goes back to those 3 coaches and Corbs, and how they can identify, a mindset at a very young age, because that's where recruiting has unfortunately started nowadays, is when they're young kids. So when they get to this point, once you've recruited them, gotten them on campus, you've watched them grow, you've helped them develop, you really just kind of want to sit in the passenger seat and let them drive the car. Because when you get to the draft, or when you get to their time to move on as graduates, or just to take the next step in whatever they do, it's really just fun to sit back and just watch their enjoyment they get to have with their families. And when you talk about the draft, and when you're probably going to go in the first round, that's one of the most memorable moments that you'll have in your life as you take that next step. So we're all just really excited for them, and it'll be a really fun evening for all of us.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where these guys land. I swear I have like 80 favorite teams now, because whoever you cover, you end up following their journey. So it'll be fun to see where these guys land. And as always, Brooks, we appreciate you and can't wait till next season with the Vandy boys.